Good afternoon, everybody. It is Sunday, September 25th, and you are live with Encrypted Connections. I am your host, Kyle. And before I get started, I wanted to touch base about some stuff that's going on. We all know Donnie was on last night, and Donnie lives in Florida. They are preparing for a hurricane right now, and he's got all those animals down there at that rescue that he's got to try to, get to shelter and, take in. And when I asked Donnie the other day, I said, what do you do? Like, if there's a terrible hurricane, what do you do with the animals? He said, we don't leave them. We don't leave them. If they're there, we're there. And so, I mean, this guy is just a top-notch, grade A human being. There's just not many people out there like him. Yeah, thank you, Matt. He's just an amazing guy, and he'd do anything for anybody. So, the least we can do is send him prayers, positive energy, whatever it is you believe in that is going to try to, bring him some good luck, because he needs it right now. I'm hoping that this thing kind of weakens, but I don't know. It doesn't look too good. It's supposed to make landfall in the next couple of days. Category 2 or 3 is what they're thinking. And that's bad, man. That's bad enough. If you've never been in a category 2 or 3 hurricane, I promise you, it's bad. It's scary. It does damage. So please, yeah, prayers to Donnie. Thank you, Jamie. Hi, how you doing, honey? What's going on, Long Island Bigfoot? So prayers to Donnie. Besides that, what's today? Sunday? Tuesday night. 8 p.m. live. The Squatch Watchers, Taylor and Tate, 2 of the 4 horsemen are going to be on. So I ask that you guys tune into that. That'll be a good one. But right now, this is a first. This guy's not shared his story with anybody else. Am I right?
That's absolutely correct, Kyle.
Okay, so this is first. He's he's had some activity going on in and around where he lives, and he's going to share that with you today. This is Maddie J. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm great, brother. How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
I'm good, man. My pleasure. My pleasure. So we talked a little earlier. We spoke over message. Matt's going to share. I have full confidence that Maddie's going to give you guys a wonderful episode just from talking to him earlier. He's got it down. He knows what he's going to tell you. So I'm just going to hand it over, bro. Tell him what's going on.
Thank you so much, Kyle. And hi, everybody out there. Appreciate all the time. So I had actually come in to connection with Kyle, just so you guys know, out through the Sasquatch group, which has been great. Lots of props to all the admins running the site there.
Great group, yeah.
Yeah, and we've all been in some other groups that are, maybe not the best experience either, but Sasquatch, again, big shout out. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate all your time, and appreciate all the admins. So a little background on me, and I'll give you a quick snippet. So as I told Kyle, I like to keep my exact location, fairly private. But what I will tell everyone out there who's familiar with our area, I am at the southernmost point of Bristol County, Massachusetts. I'm about 10 driving minutes north of Rhode Island. And for those who are familiar with the Bridgewater Triangle, I am exactly 12 miles due west of Hockomock Swamp. And as a lot of this area has a lot of connectivity. Even though there's a lot of development here, there's a lot of connectivity.
Tons of it. I do a lot of my research in the Bridgewater Triangle. Mm-hmm. It's a crazy place.
It's a crazy place. It's a crazy place. It's not somewhere I go too often. And if we get to it today, I'll explain why that is. And that'll kind of connect in with my experiences as well.
Sure.
So, like a lot of us out there, I've always had a fascination with phenomena, right? And whatever that happens to be. I like understanding the why about things. Anyone can understand the why of American history, right? But it's phenomena. It's the unknown. It's the unexplainable, because you don't want to be that, it's out there, the truth is out there necessarily kind of guy, because that's kind of tricky. But when there are overwhelming amounts of evidence of all kinds, whether that's physical, visual, audio, whatever, and it mounts more and more every year, it makes you want to know. It makes you want to know that why. So at the end of 2016, I purchased the home that I'm in now. I wasn't moved in until about December, and I actually had major surgery at that time. So I was laid up into 2017. And now, of course, it's winter, it's cold months. It was a pretty nasty winter that year. Come springtime, when things started to warm over, May, and then especially into June, what was happening is I would hear a loud, I don't know how the word to describe it. It's something hard hitting the house with obvious, tremendous velocity, and also obvious with a sideways trajectory. So this was not, a big acorn falling out of a neighboring tree. This was not a bird hitting the house, nothing like that. It was loud. It was a loud, hard object hitting the house with velocity to the point where anyone in the house just jumped. It's very unexpected. This would continue to happen on and off in the warmer months. It happened in 2017. It happened in 2018. And usually around the same time of day, there was definitely some consistency. I would say the 2 to 3 p.m. hours usually when it would be heard. But then after not too long, it kind of ceased. Really didn't hear anything for a while. And as Kyle and I were talking about earlier, I've always been a very big fan of Les Stroud and the Survivor Man series and his work. And as we know, Les came out with a very compelling 9-episode series or 10-episode series of Survivor Man Bigfoot.
Yeah, he just did a great job. He didn't overdo it. He was very what's the word here? Diplomatic about it.
Yes, agreed. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. He definitely has, and I think Les, and I'll kind of paraphrase that, he walked the fine line between skepticism and belief.
For sure.
Went into it with his mind and his expertise to the bush. He went in with a scientific mind, but he went in with an open mind. And
the one thing that he said on that show that I thought was so perfect, right? People have a hard time accepting when you say, like, do you believe in Bigfoot?
Mm-hmm.
But this stuck with me. He said, if I pose that question in a different way, if I ask you, do you believe it's possible that an upright walking hominid of some type could live in the forests of North America and remain mostly undetected? It's easier for people to think about that, right, than to say, do you believe in Bigfoot? Like,
right.
A lot of people hear Bigfoot and they just go, yeah, no.
Right.
But is it possible that there's a hominid of some sort that remains hidden in the woods? Correct. And I just thought that was a wonderful way to phrase that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. There's something, it actually comes from a movie, but it was a discussion of beliefs, and beliefs are tricky, right? There are people in different parts of the world to this day who are fighting and dying over beliefs every day, right? Beliefs are tricky. Beliefs are hard to break. Mm-hmm. However, it's nice to have a good idea.
Yeah.
I would always rather have a good idea than a belief, because ideas can change, ideas can be modified. So with that said, I was very interested, obviously, in what Les had presented. And I started recalling back, as Kyle and I were talking a little earlier. I grew up in a very thickly wooded area, very close to where I live now, and remembering kind of the sights and sounds and smells, and it really brought me back into where I hadn't really been, feeling as one, with nature and our environment around me as I maybe had previously. And I started really paying attention, and it suddenly occurred to me that what I was hearing and experiencing was rock throwing.
Mm.
So I live on a dead end road. It's a gravel road. We are in a heavily forested area, but we're also right on a main route. The main route where I live completely intersects the town. It literally divides it in two. However, on either side of that main route in parallel runs pristine woods. All right, so if you can imagine, this is our main route, and on either side is just miles and miles and miles and miles of untouched woodline. There's business woven into that, there's residential woven into that, but it's a perfect parallel. There is ample food source. We have everything from small woodland creatures up to red fox, fishers, white-tailed deer everywhere, coyotes. There's been black bear sighting recently. You name it, it's out there. There's also ample water sources.
Mm-hmm.
I live near 3 major lakes, 3, which are they're technically ponds, and I'm not going to get into gallons and all that, but major water sources. There's natural fishing. There's a fish hatchery. We've got it all. We've got it all. So where I live is right in that same stretch, dead end street. There's only 3 houses on the street, and it hits right to this wood line. There is what I suspect is a man-made path that follows about 100 yards to the other side, and there's an apartment complex. Everything in between that, on either side of the pass, there's gullies where natural rainfall will land. That will hold. Now, with the recent drought we had this year, obviously, that dried up a lot sooner, as a lot of places did. But normally that's filled, and it stretches on for miles and miles and miles. And there's an interesting home along that, and we'll get to that a little bit if we have time today. But I started kind of playing everything back. I've got a good photographic memory for these kind of things, and I'm realizing that any time this rock throwing was occurring, the trajectory, is coming directly from the wood line, directly from that opening. Now, here's what's interesting. A lot of us out there, I'm sure, understand the concept of Sasquatch being curiously afraid, to where they want to be in close. They're curious about what you are, what you're doing, but they like the cover of darkness. There is an old streetlight directly over the entrance to the woods. It creates a natural barrier.
Yeah.
Anyone for that matter, could literally be standing at the edge of the path with your feet touching the gravel road and completely not be seen at all. Not be seen at all. You could be wearing brightly colored clothing, would matter. Cannot be seen. So I suddenly said, okay. Now, like I said, the rock throwing ceased, I would say, in probably 2018. And I theorize why. I believe that and I'm going to say they, and I'll explain that. They were testing. What are the new neighbors like? What kind of energy are they giving off? Are they threatening? Right? A lot of us have either heard of, read on, experienced own rock throwing and other things like that, which are just kind of a territorial hello, right? Just so you know. I think that once my home was presented in with positive energies and with calming, auras around it.
Oh, you froze on me, buddy. Can you hear me? Oh, we're having a couple little technical difficulties with Maddie. Maddie, if you can hear me, buddy, you can try to click out and then come back in. Now, if you're having problems, I'll bring you back in. While we're waiting for Maddie to try to get this squared away, and I hope he does. Hello, everybody that's in here. Long Island Bigfoot. Tracy. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Jamie. Hi, Christine from the mid-Michigan woods. Are you in the woods right now? Are you technically like in the woods, or is that just where you live? who else? These creatures are more than flesh and blood. Very mysterious. They are very mysterious. So listen, I have some other news that I'm going to share with you. So I recently was in touch with Mark Zaski down in Florida. You know, Mark with Kerry's partner. And I wanted to try to get a little bit more help with my research in this area. And so I asked him about his thoughts on how these creatures, if it's the same everywhere, like his where he knows where to go in Florida, and to look there, but is it the same in every state? And he said to send him a 100 square mile map. Hold on, I'm gonna bring Maddie back in real quick.
Lost my connection. Sorry there, brother.
That's all right. Hold on one sec. I just want to finish telling these guys one thing. So he told me to send him a 100 square mile map of an area areas that like I would investigate in, and he would narrow it down and put me on these things. And so I did. And Mark sent me back 2 possible areas to research. And what's funny is one of those areas is a state park, state forest and state park here. And there were more than one account of these things just in the last couple years in that area. And when you look at that area, it's the perfect place for these things. I mean, the perfect place. It has a winding river that runs right through it, has high elevations so they can hang out on the ridge lines. Then obviously it has the water down in the valley. It's like a micro ecosystem there. It's got everything they need. And so I'm going to share that with you guys too. I'm going to probably bring that up on the next episode. I didn't have it ready yet, but I'll bring that up in the next one. But Maddie's back. So Maddie, you can continue, buddy.
All right. Thank you, guys. Technical difficulties as always, right?
It happens.
When it wants to work. All right. So I brought you guys up to speed. Kyle, let me know. Did you hear up until 2021 where I started? Where I left off?
I don't think so.
Okay. So brief recap, rock throwing, 2017 into 2018, things had lulled down. I believe that was acceptance on their part of my presence and anyone else at the home with me. Things quieted down, pandemic came, not everyone was outside, not everyone was doing, so much. So then fast forward now to about a year ago, all right, 2021, and I was beginning to tell the audience here, and this is a relevant point. I myself began a journey. I began a journey because of things in my life to rediscover who Maddie really is, and to rediscover not so much spirituality, but connection with energy around me, connection with the air that flows through, right? And everything, because everything touches, right? So I got to a point in about June of this year where I was becoming curious about sounds and, not even sights, but just a presence felt. And I became more curious about that. As I'm finding my own center, and I'm finding my own self inside, and I'm finding myself being...
Oh, not again, buddy. He's freezing up again. Oh man, unfortunately, this is I'll tell you what. Right now, that area that he's in out there, it's pretty out in the middle of nowhere. It's remote. I don't know if that has anything to do with the signal. But yeah, back to Mark. Let's see here. Mark's the man. Mark is the man, Tracy. You're right. Mark's the man. That guy is so smart. He knows what he's doing. And that's why I went to him, because I have much less experience in this than he does. And I knew that if anybody could put me on to where they are, that he'd be the one. And I have places that I go that, like where he was talking about the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts. That's like 2 hours, 2.5 hours from me. So it's not as easy to get to. And that place has stuff going on all the time, and not just Bigfoot. We're talking orbs, hauntings. I've heard a lady singing in the woods there. It's just weird stuff. But I wanted some stuff closer to home, and I knew Mark would be able to find those places for me. So I'm packing up, and I'm going to go out tomorrow, and I'm going to go out Wednesday and try to see what I can find out there. I'll videotape, and I'll upload, or I'll share the pictures with you guys, and we'll see what we find. Can't send an email, Kyle. You couldn't send? I got an email from you, buddy. I just haven't been able to open it yet. I'll check it after the show. All right, he's back. You
All
there,
right,
buddy?
sorry guys, we're doing this mobile on the road, so I'm having a little overheating happening.
So go ahead, man.
So in June of this year, as again, I'm finding myself again feeling to again, like I did when I was a kid.
Hey, Maddie.
Yeah.
Is your window down?
No, you know what it is? I got the air on though. Hang on. How's that?
Better. And if you're the closer you are to it, the better we can hear you, because it was a little muffled there.
All right, let's do that.
All right. You're handsome. You're good. You look good, man.
I'm saying, right? So there was a moment in time in June of this year. I don't remember exactly when, but the master bedroom, the way the bed is pointed, I literally face that we have the double window, and I face the wood line, and I face this open path with the street light. And I was very compelled at this, and my attention was being focused, and I felt what can only be described as an electric bolt run up my spine. I mean, I'm talking from literally my tailbone to the back of my, to where I actually felt physically shaken. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm nodding off or whatever, and the TV is on, and it's on low, so I'm trying to focus on that. I'm thinking, I'm drifting off. And I said, nope, because I'm aware of what's going on, and I'm getting my bearings. I'm looking at my surroundings. I tilt my head to the window, and that's where two red eyes just very quickly opened and very quickly shut. And that was it.
That was in the wood line?
That was right up against the house.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right.
I didn't feel any thud in the ground. I didn't feel anything physical other than what was happening to me.
And let me tell you something. We talked about this. If they can choose to make a lot of noise, or they can choose to make none. They can be as silent as they want to be. I mean, they're built there. Anything that lives in the woods, a cougar can walk through those woods dead silent. A bear can walk through those woods dead silent. You won't hear them. You won't know they're coming. So It's the same with these things. If they want to make noise and let you know they're there, they will. If they don't, you'll never know they're there.
Of course. They think of it out there as they are the ultimate bushman.
Yeah, they're the king, man.
Mm-hmm. So I had this experience, and I'm trying to kind of collect myself, because what's the first thing that happens? Doubt runs through your mind.
Of course.
Right? Doubt runs through your mind. And I'm refocusing myself, and I'm recentering, and I'm looking around the room, and the same program that was on TV is still there. I'm still hearing it the same way, and I'm still now focused in like I was. Nothing had changed. The only thing that had changed is my energy had come back down, and I was calm again. I said, all right. And it made me look back. There were plenty of times where I had been walking just to trail down. Tracy, I'm going to get right back to that in a moment. right back, because that's one of my top points here. Thank you for saying that. So there'd been times where I was walking into the wood line, you know, just dropping leaves or something, you know, I mean, something so simplistic. And I would get to that point of the wood line where I said, like, you could put your foot down right in the street. And I would froze. I froze. I want everyone to understand this was never fear. It was never fear. It was a sense of electricity. It was very overwhelming. It was one day I had gone in feeling this. I got about halfway down the path, so figure about 150 feet or so. And I felt like that we've all felt that, you know, I'm being watched feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can feel someone across a crowded airport who are being nosy. I can feel I'm being watched, right? I had that feeling. This was about 10 o'clock in the morning, summertime, very nice day out. So I look to my right, and there is a large buck white-tailed deer, full stag, and he is frozen. Now I'm thinking there's leaves everywhere that have been accumulated for, you know, who knows how long. And I'm crunching my way through, even though I'm always soft of foot. I'm thinking, why hasn't he run? And then I kind of take a breath and I look to the left, and there's two doe. And they're good size. I mean, they're not yearlings at all. Frozen. And it was just so bizarre. And I said, why aren't they moving? And I still have this overwhelming feeling of being watched. And I just started taking slow steps backwards. A, because I wanted to keep my eye on them. But B, something was just telling me not to turn around. I got as far back as I could without tripping over my own feet, turned right face around, and walked out. Went back later in the day, about 2 o'clock, just to see. I stepped right on the edge of that wood line, and I had that same electricity go right through me again, but it was more foreboding this time. Again, I was never in fear at all. Anything I've ever encountered, experienced, I've never been in fear. Well, I want to know that.
You're lucky.
Right.
You're lucky.
Because, you know, that's not always the case, and I won't veer too far off here, but you hear different reportings and sightings and experiences of, let's say, different temperament, personality. If these creatures are spread around the world, right? Indigenous people all around the world have different names, and it's not about belief or myth. It's just acceptance. There.
I think there's
They're
something
part
like
of our ecosystem.
468 different names for them in the Native American tribes or something. So I may be wrong with that number, but it's a crazy number.
Yeah, I know that in the United States alone, there's somewhere over 100 different indigenous tribes who all have a different word.
Yeah.
Right, and they're considered amongst, you know, their surroundings, just like the eagle and the wolf are.
Right.
So knowing this, and now again we're back into this year, okay, and I've looked back on these other experiences of feeling that electricity and thinking more and more on it. I'm the kind of guy who likes to do his research. I like to read. I like to read a lot because I don't want to take any one opinion or any one theory or anything at face value. I want to create a melting pot so I can make my own assessment. So now, one question here about the electricity, was it sound waves or vibration? I would say more vibration. Think of it like a tuning fork. Okay, so I'm tapped, right? I'm tapped at the base of my spine, at my tailbone, and then that vibration just ran all the way up. All the way. So think of that. You hit that tuning fork, and you get a ping,
Yeah,
and it just boom.
Yep.
That, not audible, but that sensation. But I'm telling you,
Like a reverberation.
Yes. We've all had a, spine chilling moment, watching a scary movie or something stereotypical. I'm telling you, it was 10 times that magnified.
Yeah.
It was very overwhelming. So time goes on, and I want to steer back to what Tracy said here. Tracy made mention of electromagnetic pulse. So Tracy, you're dead on here, my friend. So before I get into a few other experiences I've had here, as I've read more, experienced more, I decided to make my own kind of connectivity for what I felt was my communication with them. Okay. I would go out, remembering that they had kind of tested with the rock throwing too. So I said, well, it's time for me to let them know that I'm here too, even though they clearly know that, but to kind of present myself. I would go out every morning and every night at dusk, and I would do 3 wood knocks, all the same, consistency of repetition, same way every time, and 3 whoops. And I became pretty well adjusted through. I've been a musician for a long time and understanding sound, and I have a knack for being able to mimic. So I would do those as just kind of a, hey, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Hope all is well. Calm energy. I started to think, and Tracy, this is where you're on here. Every living being on this planet has an electromagnetic field. We all do. I do. Kyle does. Everyone out there watching does. Different animals, because don't forget, we're animals. Different animals in the animal kingdom carry a stronger pulse than others.
Yep.
Think of it like the wounded fish in the ocean, and the shark can sense that electromagnetic pulse from so far away, right? Think of it like that.
Well, tigers even use infrasound and electromagnetic energy to disorient their prey.
Yep. Think of bats using sonar. I mean, it's all, there's a lot of connectivity. So I started thinking to myself, what is the number one basic thing that people always describe in any kind of an experience? Oh, I just got that hair standing up on the back of my neck feeling. You hear that with everybody.
Yeah.
So I started to say, if these, I'm going to say creatures, and I say that loosely, but if these creatures, these beings, is it so hard, right? And this goes back, all right, Kyle. So is it so, isn't it possible? Isn't it possible that these creatures, this species, has maybe the most heightened, sensitive electromagnetic pulse in the known living world?
Right.
Is it not possible? We
just
don't know.
Just consider their size. Period. So
Right.
if you just go off of a physical prowess, if we admit an electromagnetic pulse that's whatever, theirs is going to be bigger just because we're talking about giants here. We're talking about gigantic, monstrous beings. Whatever they are, they're gigantic.
Right. So here's where I tie some other things to this as well. My experience early on was that, that very sharp, tuning fork feeling going up my spine. But as time went on, as I went on my own, what I'll call kind of, spiritual reconnection journey over this last year, anytime I felt this, it was very diminished. And here's why I think that is. I myself have opened I've opened my portal, all right, into my own energy. And as much as I allow energy in, I allow energy out, because life is symbiotic, right? The trees that give off oxygen that we breathe into, the exhales that go back to the ozone layer, and that's very simplistic, but everything's connected in the living world. If I now am open myself, why wouldn't that now be a more peaceful, calming experience? And that's what I've experienced now. Anytime I have felt presence, and I still feel presence plenty, it's much more calming and peaceful. Like I said, I was never in fear. It was never fear. It was exhilarating. It was overwhelming. And now I understand why, to my understanding anyway, because I wasn't as open as I am now to receive. So think of it like a wave coming at you, but there's only a small little opening. Well, what's it going to do? All that energy is going to try to force through, and it's going to create that forceful energy on the other side.
Well, I want to say something real quick. Sorry, Johnny just checked in. You can see the comment on screen. He's traveling right now, but he's here. God bless everyone. Donnie, thank you for joining, buddy. I love you, brother. Please stay safe. We all love you here. If you need anything, you know where we're at, man. Stay safe. You got our prayers and our love with you and your family, brother. All right, go ahead, Maddie. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry at all. I appreciate it. So again, if you are not open yourself, if they carry this energy, and that energy is going to come at you. If you're only open so much, think of that wave coming at you, and it only has this much opening to get through. It's the fire hydrant, right? The pressure is going to build on the other side.
Yep.
What if you yourself come in with a calm presence, and you yourself are more open, and you say, okay, let this energy bring into me? Well, then it's suddenly like this. It's not about fear. It's about leaving yourself open.
And this is stuff too. Like if they are part animal, right, of some sort, if they're part primate, if you approach a dog, right, and you don't know that dog, if you approach it scared and jittery, that dog picks up on that, right, and it's probably going to reciprocate some of that. But if you go calmly and openly, the dog's probably going to be open and loving and calm to you. Now, I'm not saying I know. I'm just saying that these are theories that need to be discussed.
Right. There are exactly 2 animals in the world that can smell fear. One are bees, and the other are dogs. Proven.
Yep.
So is it so far out there? Isn't it not possible, right? And I'm going to read real quick here.
Yeah.
All creatures have vibrations, so would they know how many is in your house or know you're human? I wish I knew that. I don't know. That would be an answer of their level of understanding. And we're having this discussion today because none of us really know that, right? Again, isn't it possible that if they can feel energies, they can feel my energy, but if there's someone else in the home with me that doesn't have as open of much of energy, wouldn't they be able to distinct that? Is that really so far-fetched? Isn't it possible? If you theorize one thing, how can you branch out from that within the scope of reality? So I'll go on a little longer here, Kyle, if you don't mind. I got some other connected stories that'll go with this.
Go for it, man.
Once I left myself open, all right, and I could feel that calming. I could still very much feel presence, but again, it was calming. That's the word I keep going back to, but that's what it was. So 4th of July week this year, I decided to experiment with gifting. So
that can go many ways, and a lot of times it's very overwhelming. I think people end up going, wow, what did I get myself into? But go ahead.
So I definitely asked myself that, what am I getting myself into here? So I walked the path that cuts through the wood line. And again, there are gullies on either side of the wood line. They fill out with water. There's also There's no, passport out there, but certainly where travel can happen. And about midway through, again, maybe 100, 150 feet in, I discovered a branch that overhung very perfectly over it on a nice angle, and it was actually forked at the end. I found that kind of odd, but I'm like, it was like it was calling out, like, hey, right here. I said, okay. So I took 2 bananas, and I had specifically waited until they were a little past ripe, but nowhere near rotting. And here's why I did that. At the midpoint of a banana cycle, if you see that, it's yellowing, but they're starting to do kind of the leopard spots, right? Not a lot. That is at the point where fermentation's starting. It's also where a banana is going to release more of its fiber content, right? So that even in its peel is going to permeate more, not even necessarily to the human olfactory system, but certainly to wildlife. So I said, okay, the fork of the branch is I'm average height, and I had to stretch up pretty far to reach. It's probably a good 7 feet. And I noticed that where it was branching off from, it was sturdy enough. The thickest part of the branch was maybe 3/4 of an inch, I'd say. The edge at the fork had just enough to where I could balance the bananas just so. I had to get it just right. I shifted them forward just a little bit just to see what had happened, and the branch started to bow. I said, okay, they're heavy enough to where these would drop right off. So I balanced them just so. Now, of course, there's you put control into your experiment, right? So I theorized that, knowing the woodland creatures we have around, anything heavy enough that would come up onto this branch, smelling the bananas, wanting to go for them, it would snap under the weight. Anything small enough to get up there, say a chipmunk, these were 2 full-grown bananas, and I left them connected too. So it would be kind of a chore,
Uh-oh. He's cutting out again. I'm going to go back to some of these comments. So when you guys were talking about how their tracks disappear, and Gene says, I've seen them drop to their fingertips and tips of their toes. They spread their arms and legs until their belly skims the ground. That balances their weight, move fast, spider crawl. This spider crawling thing has been talked about a lot. I can tell you, and I haven't shared it all yet, but I can tell you about something that happened in the Bridgewater Triangle. And what we saw was on its fingertips and its toes on all fours. And it moved in a way that was so inhuman. It was the weirdest. It was scary the way it moved, but it rose up from that position in just one smooth, fluid movement without using anything. Like, it just came straight up. Whoop. Like, if I was to duck down below that line and just come in like this, just straight up, no bending, no effort, no nothing, just came right up like it was in an elevator almost. It was crazy. I don't know if that's how they avoid leaving prints, because you'd think you would still see the belly skimming. If it was in mud or at least snow, it would be hard to do that. But because I've seen them disappear in snow too. Let's see what else. Donnie sends his love. He says, Frogman doesn't know what to do about the hurricane. I'm sorry, buddy. We're going to send you our prayers and our love, dude. It's I know it's a scary thing, and we're hoping for the best for you guys down there. Everybody send your prayers and your love and your positive energy down to Florida, to Frogman, and to anybody else who's down there. Christine Murphy, I'd like to speak to you if you wouldn't mind, outside of here, if you are up for it, to talk about some of the stuff you've seen and gone over. You can email me right there. If you're not, I totally understand, but sounds interesting. So anyway, Maddie's back. So Maddie, go ahead, continue, buddy.
Thank you guys. Sorry, my phone is overheating is what the what the problem is. That's why I keep cutting out, but at least it cuts right back in. So I had the bananas precariously positioned, balanced. Anything heavier would snap the branch. If it was a smaller woodland creature, excuse me.
Maddie,
You know,
tell them where you're from again. They're asking. Gene's asking
absolutely.
where you're.
Thank you guys. So I am in the southernmost point of Bristol County in Massachusetts. I'm about 10 minutes north of the Rhode Island border, and I am exactly 12 miles due west of Hockomock Swamp in the Bridgewater Triangle.
If you guys look up the Hockomock Swamp and the Bridgewater Triangle, I mentioned it before. I do research up there. It's a very, very strange place. There is a lot of weird stuff that goes on there. Bigfoot sightings going back a very long time. Orbs, hauntings, UFOs. It's a place with just a crazy high energy field. It's just nuts.
Yep. So left these out, and I said, okay, even with white-tailed deer, this is still high enough to where even if they push up on their hind legs, we're able to grab this. There's going to be disturbance. There's going to be hoof prints. Even with the leaves, the leaves on kind of the forest floor, if you will. It was at the time of year where a lot of these are broken out. We had a lot of rain. So it would still be easy enough to track and easy enough to discern. So I left them. I cleared out, I kind of not cleared my tracks, but left everything as pristine as I could. I got to the edge of the wood line, and this was right at dusk, and I did my 3 wood knocks, and I did my 3 whoops. And I don't know how well you hear, but I kind of just do a low, just whoop, 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 just to let that out over there. Occasionally, I would even put a little whoop, whoop, whoop. Very calming, just to say, hey, I'm here. Left. Went back out about 6:30 in the morning. Daylight's coming next day. Not really knowing what I was going to find. I figured, well, they'll still be there. They absolutely were not. And they were taken clean. There was no disruption to the branch. There was no claw marks, chew marks, anything. The branch was pristine in the same bow it was. And I said, well, okay. So a deer came along. There was no scraps. When have you ever known a white-tailed deer to pick up a food item and carry it away?
Doesn't happen.
They just don't. They just don't.
Nope.
There's not a scrap, not a bit of a peel, not anything. I said, all right. I'm moving around on the ground, and the way the sunlight breaks through the canopy at that time of day causes a lot of ground shadows, which, as those of you who have been out in the bush exploring before, that makes tracks pop. And it took my breath away. I had a very, very clear, and it even still kind of shakes me now to think back on it, a very clear heel impression. It was the left foot. The impression was probably, I'd say, about 4 inches in diameter, excuse me. The impression was probably pressed about an inch into the ground. It's pretty hard ground right there. There was a definite arch. There was an imprint of a clear ball of a foot, about the size of a golf ball. And then I found, I believe it was 3 toe impressions. The big toe impression was incredible. Absolutely incredible. Also very, very golf ball sized, and it impressed into the ground probably 2 inches.
Yeah.
And I realized why, because it was a left foot step towards the branch coming from the far side of the trail. And I realized it was pressing up. That's why the heel wasn't as buried in and as defined as the ball and the toes were. I found 2 smaller toes, and they were just one. It wasn't happenstance. It wasn't something digging there. It was very uniform.
Yeah.
And I realized it was a forward stride, a reaching up stride. And I said, oh, wow. And you have to have that moment of doubt, right? I'm doubting what I'm seeing. I've seen deer hoof prints. I mean, in my own yard, everywhere. They're everywhere on this.
Yeah, we got so many in this area in our 2 or 3 bordering states. There we have they have us hunt them because they're so overpopulated. And
Right.
they set dates and times to send hunters out in the woods to get rid of the deer just because there's so many.
Right. Yeah. So I started moving around some more, and I kind of started backtracking, seeing which direction it was coming. I started backtracking, and that's when I found the right footprint in same size, same arch. This time, the big toe in the right foot now was more evenly depressed into the ground as the heel was. So this is just a walking stride. The distance between the right foot and the left foot, which is very uniform. I mean, you talk 1, 1, 1, 1, was probably about 6 feet, if I had to guess, about 6 feet.
Ooh,
But it was an absolute stride. And I said to myself then, why then would it have to reach out at this? And I said, okay, it's a leaning forward. If this is truly any kind of hominid, think of what the arm length probably is like, right?
Oh,
Broad shoulders, sloping arms. I can surmise that it got as far as it needed to get, and it stepped forward to reach out and went right back and pivoted out again, and off it went.
probably right.
Clean taken.
They're not gonna put themselves in any positions that are they're not going to do anything extra to compromise themselves. So the least amount that they need to do to get whatever they're getting, go wherever they're going, that's what they're going to do. They're not going to make any extra movements. They're not going to make a big roundabout, because those are the things that get them seen.
Right. Again, they're the ultimate bushman. So having my breath kind of taken away, but also being excited at what I've seen now, I said, okay, I'm going to try gifting again the following day, or actually it was that night, same day, that night. And I took 2 more bananas. I specifically bought a bunch. They're in the same state. And I said, okay, I'm going to go back out again and do the same thing. But now I'm going to add some control to this. This time, I balanced them on a branch that overextended somewhat, right at kind of the beginning of the trail, right at the end of the gravel road. These would have been much easier to reach by deer passing by. We get deer all the time. The branch was much sturdier, so much more easy for even, say, a squirrel to go up, or whatever else, to easily pick those off, and some bigger woodland creature to be able to carry them away too. And I left them there. I did my wood knocks. I did my whoops. And fun fact for everyone out there, I'm actually not knocking on wood at all. I'm doing the air pop with my mouth.
Yeah.
Which look it up. You'd be surprised how similar it can sound. Yeah. So I did that. Did it dusk. Next morning came. They were still there. And I said, well, that's odd. Because again, this is now beginning of July. It's still been nice. We hadn't hit the heat wave yet. And I'm thinking, okay, that's interesting. So I took them down from where they were. And I said, all right, let's try something. So I took them back down the trail. And I precariously put them back on the same branch again. I balanced them the same way. I kept them in the same direction, pointing the same way, everything. Cleared my path, back-footed out, did my knocks, did my whoops. I said, okay. That night, I'm in bed in that master bedroom that faces out of the wood line. And the windows are open. It's nice out. And ironically enough, I was watching, I believe it's like Missing 411 or something like that. It's a missing persons, kind of a dramatization. There was an episode I was watching, which was actually centered on, what was maybe, alien abduction or something like that.
Was it if it was Missing 401, it's David Paulides, and
Yeah.
he's done a bunch of those, man. Some really great stuff. His books are amazing. He's an ex-police officer, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got a law enforcement background. Yeah.
Yep.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
So I happened to be watching an episode that was recommended to me because there was an area of exploration on this, these missing persons cases that he was looking into, where there was a hot spot of Bigfoot activity. And there is incredible audio, if you find the episode of it, of several Sasquatch around a camp, whooping and hollering and grunting, and I mean it's absolutely incredible. And the audio is actually very old, so not something that could easily have been mimicked, in a more modern era, if you will. But anyway, so I was actually watching that. Bananas are back out there again, and it was about, I'd say about 9:30. Sun's down. It's dark. Street lights on. Yeah.
Read that one.
Right. Hey, listen, I'll take my chances.
This was, but it's funny, but it's not, because this was posed as a theory with when we talked about my encounter in 1994. The creature stuck its tongue out multiple times and tilted its head back like this. And it was thought, one of the theories was maybe it was some way for them to sense your pheromones or something along those lines, and
Sure.
Yeah, and Kerry had said something about that, about it looking for a date. I said, I hope not. I hope not.
So I'll say this, Gene. You're not wrong, right? Because what if me leaving the bananas out there? Well, okay, I don't know. What if that is very offensive to their olfactory? I don't know that. What if, whooping and wood knocking to the specific, specific part of the species that's surrounding me? What if that's an agitator? You don't know. You don't know. So I will go back to my calming energy. I was transferring my energy to them, and they transfer their energy to me, because it's a very, very peaceful, serene, tranquil feeling. And as I had mentioned before, and as others have maybe said, the knocks and the whoops were just my way of saying, hey, I'm here. And I'm not just going bang, bang, bang or whatever. They were done with purpose. The whoops are done with purpose, because I truly believe if you're giving off that energy, the message will be received. But it's a good point, because no one knows, right? So you are taking a measure of chance, but isn't that just the control in the experiment?
Well, these are all things that we don't know. So, people try things. That's the thing about this type of subject matter. When you don't know, you gotta give things a shot. You gotta have some balls. Excuse the term, but you gotta have some balls. I mean, Mark Zasky, guy's got a set of steel balls. What he does, running into their living room. I mean, and look what he's catching. In order to progress and learn more, it's trial and error, and sometimes that might come with, you know, a little uncomfortability. And so, you know, I'm with it, man. I'm with it.
Yep. So I'm sitting up in bed, wide awake, enjoying the program. Like I said, it's probably about 9:30, I would say. I've got all the windows open. I don't have, you know, fans, ACs, nothing's on, because I want it to be quiet. The TV's on very low, but I also want it to be kind of a distraction. So sitting there, sitting up, wide awake, and I hear what can only be described as an impact tremor. A loud thud. And it was a very straight down sound to it. I kind of would equate it to, and certainly not to the same impact, but think of how flat-footed an elephant is and what that sounds like, right? A straight down thud,
Mm-hmm.
you know, obviously not on the same scale, but that's what I would equate it to, very flat-footed sounding. And it hit a branch, and I heard a snap right with the thud. It was very audible. And I took note that even the peepers were quiet this night. You know, there's been coyote pups in the area that time, which is pretty cool to hear them all playing at night. It was very, very quiet. And yes, Long Island, thank you for that. Even if something is proven, you can't assume across the board, right? Again, there's different accounts, this country, other countries, all around the world.
They vary. They vary so vastly, even in the areas that they're in. Like if you've ever seen them, or if you've seen one or two, they look different from each other. There are certain things that tend to seem to happen, you know, regularly. But you know, he's dead right. Like you don't know, because they're so different from each other in so many ways, and we don't know. We just don't know.
Right. You know, and you know, Kyle and I, we're two guys, you know, wearing cool ball caps on a Sunday and talking Sasquatch, but we're different, but we're the same, right? So I mean, again, you know, there's a certain moment in time where you have to split off myth from what's happening. What are you seeing? What is, you know? So I hear the thud, I hear the snap of the branch, and the funny part is I didn't get the exhilaration, and I was like, okay, and I turned and I looked right at the wood line, and I'm going to say this. My father once told me that nobody in life has a truthometer. You are either going to take what I'm about to say as truth, as face value, or you're not. And that's fine. They're only my words. You are only going to take that for whatever you're going to take that as you, a person, and we're all beautiful out there. I looked right at that snap, and floating out there, the size of a softball, was an orange glowing orb. And it hung in the air. This was not a firefly. If it was a firefly, it was the size of a cantaloupe. It was not anything standing out there. There's no houses beyond that. It's not like someone had one of those, you know, colorful globes, you know, sitting on a pedestal and the street light is hitting it. This was not the same color as the street light. And it just floated. And I did what everyone might want to do, and just, I got to turn my head away and put my head down and say, this can't be what I'm seeing. But it was just so matter of fact. It was so calm, you know, that tranquility. And I gave it a few minutes, and I'm thinking, no way it'll still be there. And I looked, and there it was, just floating. And it kind of shimmered, just like that, back and forth. And I figure, well, I ought to look away again. And it just dissipated, like someone just turned the light off. I couldn't even tell you how much time passed by. It wasn't a long time, but I was not aware of anything else around me other than that. I was so in tune and I was so calm. If any one person sees a floating orb of light, who knows what your reaction would be to that? You know, some might run the other way, some might run towards it. Who knows?
There's some people who believe in certain places they say don't follow the orbs because the orbs are trickery. It's they're trying to get you further into the woods
Yeah,
for these creatures to be able to get at you. Now,
right.
again, just another theory. I don't know, but some people believe it in certain places, and it makes you wonder why they believe that. That there had to have been something at some point that made someone think that.
Well, it's kind of, I take it as, because a lot of people hold, let's call it the phenomena of Sasquatch. They hold up that as mythological as the three-headed dog, right? So I think that traces back to the mythology of sirens, who would sing and bring sailors in who would feel so calm and tranquil only to be devoured. Now, I'm not suggesting that's what Sasquatch are trying to do. Here's what I theorize the orb is, because that's been reported, multiple times, multiple
Yeah.
experiences.
Oh yeah.
Let's think back on that electromagnetic pulse. Is it not possible that because these creatures, these beings, whatever you want to say, have such a strong electromagnetic pulse, that is just not how their energy is being presented to us visually? That's where
Totally possible.
that's what it looks like to us in the spectrum of light that we can see.
Totally possible.
Think about all the bioluminescent creatures at the bottom of the ocean that thrive in dark.
Yep.
Always look back. My advice to everyone out there, always look into the animal kingdom, into the living world, and say, okay, this animal, this species can do that. It was proven not too long ago that I believe it was either elk or caribou can actually see ultraviolet light. Who
Yeah.
would have ever thought that? Who would have
Yeah.
ever thought that? But yet they can.
Bama's Bigfoot says, I've never heard of an orb hurting anyone. I've gone into the woods after seeing an orb. I don't know. I wasn't saying that I think they hurt anyone. I've seen them in the Bridgewater Triangle a few times, and not far from me at all. I mean, I've seen them moving around the trees. Even it had a path that it was following. No, I was never hurt. But there's certain people in certain parts of the world, or who believe that if you follow them into the woods, that they're trying to get you deeper in there to these creatures so that they can hurt you.
And that's the
I heard it or
about
read it somewhere, but
yeah.
yeah.
And that's why I kind of tie that kind of thing back to mythology. I think, people kind of tend to blend that together, whether it's just misunderstood or not read enough, or sensationalism, or what. It could be a lot of things, but that's kind of how I trace that back myself. But this, like I said, was just it was tranquility. It was it was quite an experience. Naturally, of course, it occurs to me the next morning, the bananas are out there. I should probably go see what that's about. And I walked in, did my knocks, did my whoops, and I was, what's the word I even want? Joyful. I just felt, I was so happy. And I just said, like, just that great feeling of a great day. And sure enough, they were gone. It's like, this is the branch we wanted them on. This is what we're feeling, because the other branch was kicking out under that street light. So was I drawing them in too far? This time, however, I found only one print directly under the branch, but it was much smaller, maybe half the size. I wear about
And how big was that other print about?
I was gonna say, so I wear about a 10.5 or 11 work boot. I have my work boots on that day. So heel to toe, the track I found on the first day was probably about 7 inches longer than even my size 11 work boot.
Oh, okay, that's a big one.
Yep. This one was about the size of my boot itself, so considerably smaller. It was more narrow, and the heel impression was more circular, as where we'll call it, say, the adult one that I found had more of it was a little more oblong. I'll say is probably the right way to say it. It wasn't as circular. It was a little more flattened out. So I said,
We
okay, this
I've
is
seen
maybe a
multiple tracks.
juvenile.
I've seen multiple tracks like this too, like in a couple sets together. The heel was very rounded, and
Hmm.
the other one, it was like it stretched out and became very narrow towards the back. It was very,
Yeah,
very weird looking.
yeah. It was. It was an odd shape to where, like I said, the smaller one I found that could be theorized as maybe juvenile was much more rounded, wasn't as defined. So at the end of the week, I had decided, just for personal reasons, that I would kind of leave well enough alone. And the following weekend, because I also, thank you, Tracy, appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy.
So I said, all right, I didn't want to overstimulate, because again, I don't know, what message am I sending, or am I drawing them in even further? I was outside on the patio, which is, again, right, it's all within the wood line here, and I had some company out with me. I had 2 adults and I had a young teenager. And it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon around, and we're having lunch, having a chat, and I heard the most unmistakable, loud, shrill whoop I have ever heard. Ever heard. If I try to mimic it now, it's gonna shatter everyone's volume on their laptops and phones there. So I won't try to do it here. But it was. So let me say this. The reason, again, my theory, the reason that humans struggle to mimic a good whoop, right? If you've heard audio, it's like their vocal range is almost speaking in multiple octaves at once.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
you're getting a low register sound, so you're getting a baritone sound. You're getting maybe a mid sound, and then you're getting maybe even a soprano sound, something higher. So you'll get maybe a baritone, maybe an alto, maybe a soprano.
And that like bravado, like reverberating, rolling, growling sound. It's just
Right.
crazy.
I like to say that it's nothing that the human diaphragm and chest can
God,
recreate.
God, no.
It's not.
Nope.
That was the amazing sound I heard that day. Now, the company I was with don't subscribe to the phenomenon, let's say. And it was a young teenager, so that teenager was oblivious, as all young teenagers are. However, they jumped out of their chairs and went, "What was that?" So I very much wanted to respond, but nor did I want to freak out my company even more than I already had. But it was unmistakable. Unmistakable. This was now one weekend after I had done gifting, after I had heard the thud, seen the orb. To me, it was almost a hey, we're here too. And okay, you know, we've been feeling you all week, because it was a Sunday to a Sunday.
Yeah.
And I mean, the timing was very, very clockwork almost. But I mean, I can mimic kind of quietly, but it was a whoo, and it went way off like that. And it hung low and then went way up it was just like, hey, we're here. It was just unbelievable. I've heard distance ones that, the little boop off. You hear it off echoing somewhere. Who knows how many trees that's bouncing off? This was like, okay, if I walk, so many degrees around the wood line, I'm going to be in your lap. It was close. It was
Yeah.
close. It was
Don says,
unbelievable.
Don Moore. Don, thank you for being here, buddy. Don says, to go along with what Maddie is saying, Randy in Michigan experienced even a juvenile Bigfoot mimicking animals and even cats perfectly.
Yep.
This happened to me in 1994 when we were sitting by the fire. The people who were with us had a little dog. And like I mentioned this before, we were back in middle of nowhere. There was nobody around. We were in the Berkshires in nowhere, okay? Mm-hmm. And then at night, probably 10 p.m., we thought it was their dog in the woods behind us, but the dog was laying at their feet. I mean, it sounded like their dog, not like a dog, like their dog. It was a high-pitched little dog yip and like whine, and we first looked like where's the dog? It's in the woods, but no, it was laying at their feet. Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. So, maybe there's, just people around, I'm generalizing, or even, some of our great audience here that say, well, again, can they really mimic? So let's think of what can mimic, right? It's so, has anyone out there ever heard of the wind talkers? These were the wind talkers.
The Native Americans?
Yes. That were used in, I believe it was World War I.
Yep.
Who knew how to make calls to travel along in the wind.
Awesome story.
That would just kind of blend into nature's sounds, but were used as cloaked communication.
Yep.
If indigenous people can do that, indigenous people who are so connected to these amazing beings.
Yeah.
Is it out of the realm of possibility that they can do it as well?
No, I'm sure they can.
Simple. I'll say it again. I always encourage everyone, if you ever question something, or, and again, do your thing. Ask your questions. Think it through. Right. John, exactly. Thank you. The Germans could not decipher their language.
Yep.
Compare and point to something in the living world. Well, if this animal, or humans, because humans are animals too, they can do it, why can't they? If they fit right into our own ecosystem, why can't they? Think about it like that. So, right at this point was when the weather started to turn and we got into the heat wave, and all activity just ceased because the gully, where that dried out immediately. It was too hot for me even to leave out even a food gift, because it just would have rotted so quickly. So I hadn't done anything in quite a while. There was this past Friday night. Now the weather's gotten nice again up here, southeastern New England, Massachusetts area. It's got quite comfortable. Fall is definitely on its way in. So I certainly expect activity to pick back up now. New England fall is pretty prime. It was just after midnight Friday, so into Saturday. I was watching TV. I just finished up, shut the TV off. I have the light on. I'm in the master bedroom. I have the light on. So again, it's causing that natural cloak. And for the first time in a long time, I was struck with the presence. No sound, No thud, no anything. I had the blinds drawn because I had the light on, but I had the tingles for the first time in a long time, and it was exciting. Also, I kind of, it made me freeze up some because I think I was just maybe not ready. I hadn't prepped myself saying, well, maybe there'll be activity tonight because it had been so long.
Right.
One of the blinds, there's a double window there. The window that's closer to me, just because of the age of the blinds kind of tilt out a little bit. So it causes a little bit of a crease to where there's exposed window there. I was very, very compelled to keep looking at that. It was very much that feeling of someone's watching me. Someone's watching me. And I kept looking, and I kept you keep looking, you keep expecting to see something, right? It's like, that's not there, but it's not there. But yet I could just feel it all around me. And I said, okay. And I just did my breathing. I found my energy. I focused my center. And the tingling was still there, but I was not so overwhelmed by it because I was letting myself be open. And I let myself be open. It just calmed, and there was the tranquility. And then it stayed for a good long while. I kept still moving my head. I was compelled to look. There's nothing there, not that I could see. And then just did that. It just dissipated, just right down. And I was very calm again. It was peaceful again. And like I said, this was only not even quite 48 hours ago. So I plan on now getting back out and, doing some knocks in the morning and doing some oops to just like, hey, hope you found a cool place here. Hope you're coming back around because I'm here too.
Sorry, I'm trying to read the comments. I have the cat in my lap. Yeah, thank you, the cat. That's Ollie. That's one of my three. He's a big boy. He's about 17 or 18 pounds, but he's not overweight by any means. Actually, he's just a very big cat. He's very long, very tall, very solid. So he's one of the three. It's Otis and Ollie are brothers, and then I have Hope, and we have a puppy coming on Monday. Actually, we adopted another rescue, a puppy.
Good for you, buddy. Thank you.
We're gonna videotape that. Actually, I'm gonna do some other stuff on this channel too, just some different stuff to bring everybody kind of into my life a little bit. I don't know if you'll like it, but I, just figured why not try. So we're gonna videotape that whole process. You guys are gonna see the dog. He looks like Yoda. His ears are gigantic. I mean, these things are huge, but I think it's adorable. So people were talking about gifting in the chat here, and there's different views on it, like there is on everything. Some people think it's a bad idea. Some people think it's a good idea. Jean said she doesn't gift, never have, because they're perfectly good at taking care of themselves, and why give them the chemical crap that's in our food? I agree to a certain extent. What we eat, I mean, man, most of it's crap. Most of it's garbage. It's so expensive to eat healthy. It's crazy. I've done some gifting, but I don't have a place at my house that they come to. So it's places where I have to go to. So I'm not able to check as often, but I never put food. I'll leave marbles because people say marbles for whatever reason. Marbles are a thing that they love.
That's my next step. Yeah.
Yeah, people say marbles. I don't know what it is about the marbles, but if you ever watched Snow White, Bigfoot, that channel, amazing stuff. They come to her house and they move stuff around all the time. It's nuts. Yep. It's nuts. Yep.
My next step is going to be brightly colored marbles and feathers, and I'm going to arrange them in patterns and to see what kind of response I get back. There's actually a kind of a tree that had maybe broken over, so it's got kind of a rotted out stump, but it's big though, and it's probably 7 feet high, and it's off the gully, so I'll actually have to kind of climb out to it, but it's got a nice little kind of plate to it, so that's where I'm going to try some of that, but it's still off the path, or I should say close enough off the path to where it's reachable For anything long enough to be able to reach that, it's reachable. So that's going to be my first stop, is to try there.
And this is another thing that I think of. Your approach to this whole thing, with your centeredness, your attachment to the earth and the energies of the earth. I think there's something to this. I do. The Native Americans had relationships with these beings. Some tribes did. They shared things. And Donnie even talked about how one of his experiences, the creature was doing this in the distance, and Donnie kept saying, "It's waving. It's waving. It's not waving right. It's waving in a weird way."
Right.
And when he brought this to his friend, he said, "Yeah, I never believed what this thing was doing. It was waving, but it was flipping its hand over, back and forth, showing me the top and the bottom." And his wife heard it. And his wife said, "Oh, I know what that means. It's sign language for trees." At the time, Donnie was digging up a tree stump. Okay, so what did they share? But that whole centeredness, that whole approach of being calm, being one with your environment, coming with love and gratitude to the earth and to your surroundings, there's so much science around. What you give out, you get back.
Correct. And again, I'll go back to, these beings are the ultimate bushmen.
Yes, they are.
You think of your master bushmen who are out there, and think of how much they all center themselves, right? Humans, to be out there, because you have to live within nature, because nature is the most dominant force on the planet. You can't fight back at nature. You can't try to work around nature. You have to live within it. If these beings are the ultimate bushmen, think how centered they themselves must be naturally. So I'll say this, and Gene, I don't necessarily disagree, which is why I at least chose a fruit item. Now, that's not to say that fruit was not sprayed with all kinds of pesticides and who knows what else.
Who knows?
But I will say this. There have been many reports of Sasquatch digging in garbage, right? If they are surviving naturally. Now, it's actually something Kyle and I kind of quipped about when we had our little warm-up chat before this. You know, people have often said, well, you know, what could they possibly eat? Well, there's, 1,000-pound plus grizzly bears that are surviving on berries and other edibles and tubers. Fish, depending on where they are.
Yep.
Look how big they get. Look how big they get with that food source. So natural food source and resources, though, it's not automatic. There's good seasons, bad seasons.
Yep.
If they are a living species who are fighting for survival, like we all are in our own ways, they will also do what they have to do. I also believe it's what you put out, and I don't mean physically putting food out. It's what you put out. I focused myself to give off the energy that is, this is for you. This is for you.
Yeah.
And frankly, deforestation affects everybody.
For sure.
Deforestation affects everybody. And thank you, Gene. Of course. And I certainly appreciate everyone's words here, and I love the interaction. I appreciate all y'all. So, and Gene too, it's also a measure of how it's done, right? You can't go into anything aggressively or just trying to will things to happen, right? So again, if food sources are getting harder and harder to where there's now a black bear in my area where there hasn't been, and certainly not in my lifetime, deforestation affects everyone. If these are the ultimate bushmen, they rely heavily on that forestation. They rely heavily on cover. So if they're losing that, it is the smallest gift I can give to give them a small gift of food. So if it's a pass through, you're welcome here. Simple as that. It's how you go about it. I truly believe that. I'll say this too. I have a small, it's actually a fish pond. I don't stock it, out in the back corner of the yard. But again, this follows the wood line. During that drought, I can only imagine what came in and drank out of this thing, right? And hey, they're doing what they need to do. It was the only source of water. I've seen, skunks will come in and dip down. I've seen, raccoon. I've seen gopher. I've seen a little bit of everything. But is no stretch of exaggeration. Remember, nobody in life has a truth meter. That pond consistently every morning would be drained down a foot or more.
That's a lot.
Tell me how many
That's a lot.
How many deer are coming in and drinking down that much water? Come on.
That's a heck of a lot of water, brother.
I would fill it back up night after night after night. It would drain. It's a new pond. There's nothing wrong with it. Put it in myself. Drain.
Crazy.
To the point where there has been some pest problems in our town. So I've had to I've had to be kind of careful about what I'm leaving out, and of course to be respectful of neighboring areas and whatnot. So I actually now have the pond drained and covered over, not to attract in any unwanteds either. That was pretty wild.
That's pretty crazy, man. That's nuts.
Yep.
That's a lot of water.
And it's two-tiered, right? So the pond is, it's got its, kind of a island level to it. But then think of like an in-ground pool, then it slopes. It slopes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're thinking straight, if you could take a yardstick and point it at its, at its greatest depth, I mean, it's more than 2 feet. Like I said, it's built for fish. I just don't stock it.
Yeah.
So it's
crazy.
Yeah, man. It was pretty compelling. Night after night, it was pretty compelling. But like I said, I hadn't heard anything in quite some time, but it was nice to feel some presence. Kyle, I'll let you make a call on time. I have one more story to share that I can probably do in 10 or 15 minutes, but I'll let you make a call on time, brother. We can always save it for another round.
I'm gonna see. Let me see something real quick. If you guys have questions, post them in the chat.
Please, yeah.
If you got questions, post them in the chat. Put them in caps, just like Kerry did. I'm trying to. It's the easiest way for me to see them. Plus, I took all my cues from that wonderful legend of a man. Still killing me that he's not here anymore. If you never watched that guy, Bigfoot Odyssey, Kerry Arnold, Matt, you got to watch him.
I have not, but you mentioned him.
Buddy, he was a special man, and he was a mentor to me. He's the reason that I started this channel. The whole reason that I started this channel. He interviewed me on his show. And I ended up being his last interview. And there's a part of me, I'm so glad that I did it. And I'm so honored to have built a friendship with him over that time period that we knew each other. But there's a part of me that almost feels guilty about it. Like I wasn't supposed to be the last interview. You know what I mean? Like I know it might sound weird to people, but I've thought about that since the day he passed. Like, I shouldn't have been the last interview. Like, how dare I? That was kind of what I was going through my head. And I know, like, I had nothing to do with it, but I don't know. It's just a hard thing. Death's a hard thing, especially when it's somebody who is just so, just such an amazing human being like Kerry. If you guys
know what that is? Just man to man on that, Kyle. You know what that is? That's your own humility showing through. Is what that is. You're a big-hearted guy. You put a lot of positive energy out to a lot of folks here, whether you even met them or not. So for you, that's your own humility in the moment, saying, because you have so much love and respect for him, just like you always will. I understand that, brother. I do.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. He meant a lot to so many people, man. He touched so many lives. And again, you want to talk about humility? That guy, he didn't want to take credit for anything he did. That's just who he was. No agenda. His whole thing was to help people. And that's kind of what we're just trying to do here. Seek the truth, bring you content, because, for me, Kerry's show was an escape. It was a place for me to go watch something that I was interested in, with some people that I really enjoyed, and to get away from some of the doldrums of life, right? And so that's part of this too. He never judged, Lynn. You're damn right. He never judged. Not a person. If you looked at me and Kerry and you heard us speak away from each other, you would think we had nothing in common whatsoever. He was a big hulking country boy with a Mississippi twang and wore cowboy boots. And I'm a Yankee from New London, Connecticut, who grew up in the city here and in South Boston. And like, we're nothing alike, but we were. And he never crossed his mind once. He always looked at just the person, who you are as a human being. And we miss him very much. We really do. So if you have any questions, post them right now. We've been on for an hour and a half. I don't want to push it too much longer because if it goes too long, like we talked earlier, people don't watch when they go too long. You got stuff going on regularly. It's, continuous activity. I told you before, I want to have you back on again in the future.
I'd love to.
And I even said to you, like, if you felt like you wanted to come on as a guest host of some sort, like you're welcome to come back on. I'd love to have you back on.
I'd love that.
I don't want to push this anymore today, just because. Like I said, it gets going too long, and then people lose their attention span. But we'll have you back. We'll have you back for sure.
I love that.
Go ahead. What are you going to say? What are you going to say?
So I'm gonna just in honor of that, I'm gonna whet everyone's appetite here.
Okay, go for it.
I told everyone how that there's the parallel wood line along this main route. So there are a few back roads nearby where there would have to be some traffic crossing, if you will, but all connective on a very old road that leads through some old farm area and whatnot. There is something pretty spellbinding that I've seen. Pretty spellbinding, and it's
how long is it going to take you if you tell this now?
I can try to get right through it in maybe 10 minutes.
All right, go for it. Screw it. Let's do it.
All right. So, by the way the crow flies, parallel down the wood line here, there is it's about a mile, and there is a small little cape. It's an old house. It's, stone cobbled basement. They had this massive long backyard. I travel this way regularly, familiar, area I grew up in. And I noticed something. Their wood line from their back deck is got to be about 300 yards out. They have a long, long backyard. There's very clearly a man-made trail, but on either side, it's thick. They have a wooden cutout of a Sasquatch. Now, this is not a Patterson-Gimlin pose. I say this a little tongue-in-cheek. It is incredibly lifelike.
Okay.
There is detail that no one would think of. It's not a goofy face with a Santa hat. There's detail. Hulking shoulders, long arms, squared hips, wide legs, and glowing eyes. They literally painted glowing eyes. And I said, wow, the level of detail. And they had it fastened to a tree. I said, well, that's interesting. This thing has got to be 8 feet tall. And it's way off the road, but about 8 feet tall, and I'd say about 4 feet wide at the shoulders. Drove by again one day. It was moved. It was on another tree, secured, standing upright. So, well, that's odd. It stayed there for a few days. Now I'm purposely driving back and forth because I just want to see this thing. It was gone. I said, all right. Maybe they're just trying to mess with people. A couple days later, it's back on yet a different tree. Now, is this those people that live there? And it's just it's a younger couple. I've seen them in the yard. Is it them just moving it around? Sure, of course, right? What do you got to do? Start with the human element and work your way back. But I'm telling y'all right now, it's too uniform. It's very methodical. It has purpose. There's always 2 or 3 relocations, and then it disappears for a few days. And then it's back. Sometimes it's secured to the tree or a tree. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it disappears. I've also noticed that their yard is never lit up at night. Never. It's pitch black in this big, huge yard. And I'm thinking, if this is me, I'd want at least a motion light or anything. Never. Until the day a couple months ago where I saw them installing motion lights. Drove by at night, purposely, of course. And now the yard was illuminated. But only half or so, because it only reached so far. But now it's creating that natural barrier. And I just felt so calm about what I was seeing. The heat wave came, cutout was gone. It's been gone for weeks and weeks and weeks. Drove by this past week, it's back. This time it's far into the wood line. It's not at the edge of their yard. To the point where I can only see it from the waist up. It's down because there's a slope. It's just standing there. Is it them moving it around? Sure, it could be. But here's what I want to know. Why? Why? It's methodical. It's purposeful. Is this their way of gifting something that's not food? Is this their way of saying, hey, we see you? Because I'll tell you what, I don't see them outside that house. And I travel this road almost every day. I don't see them outside a whole lot. Blinds are always down. Lights are always off. It's compelling.
Kind of strange.
It's compelling. It's a little strange.
Well, that area, man, people don't know that area up there is wrought with activity. It just it's got everything they need. And for people, another thing I don't think people know, if you go back to the very first reports of hairy men and wild men in this country, they didn't start in the West Coast. They started in the Northeast. They started here. One of the first reports was the Winstead wild man, and Winstead is in northwestern Connecticut. It was one of the very first reports of a hairy man, wild man, Bigfoot creature in the country, and it was one of the first reports to make a newspaper. They started dying down when this area started getting more populated, and then you saw a shift where they were in the Northeast and then slowly started moving west, upstate New York, and then the Midwest, and then all the way out to the West Coast. And it makes sense if they have animal in them. That's what animals do. Something populates their area, they move out.
Deforestation affects everybody.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly.
Everybody.
It's a very strange
The
very
cutout
compelling.
It's something else. It's something else. Like I see, I would never go just knock on a stranger's door. I mean, what if they work second shift in there? I mean, you don't know, right?
Yeah, right.
But I've often said, if I see them outside, and I just politely approach, hey, I'm just curious, if they don't want to talk to me, they don't want to talk to me, and I'll leave them be. But that's just it. They don't go out a whole lot. They don't. Vehicles are often in the driveway. I wonder.
Probably a reason.
You're like, what are they seeing? That's and what are you doing? Because why would anyone, if you wanted to just spook people, why wouldn't it just stay in the same spot?
Right.
It's very methodical. Why would you take that much time that frequently?
Yeah. If it's a big cutout too, it's probably a pain in the butt to move around.
And just, Kyle, I'm telling you, man, the detail.
Yeah.
The time it must have taken to cut it so perfectly too.
They probably saw these things and they said, we'll make one to let them know that we see them, kind of like what you're saying. And then this is what they did.
I really don't have any doubt, because again,
just like them. And
their wood line connects all the way to mine because it runs parallel for miles.
Yep. So they got those corridors to run through.
Yep. So that was my additional story on the
Well, that
cutout.
was good.
That's something, man. That's something.
That was good. Real quick in the comment section, somebody talked about Donnie speaking with Miss McCrae because she can remote view. I spoke to Donnie, and Donnie mentioned this to me that he wanted to do this. I don't know what, I forget if he said he was going to. He said he wanted to, but I forget if he said he was going to or if there was something stopping him from doing it. That remote viewing stuff is really neat. I've read a bunch of stuff on it, and I've watched some stuff on it. People can learn how to do this, and they did I believe the Nazis tried to do this during the war, to try to steal secrets from us. Weird stuff, but again, just more stuff that we don't, that's out there that a lot of people don't know about. If it's so ignorant to think that we know everything. I mean, that's just such an ignorant. We don't know a fraction, I think, of what we're capable of and what nature has out there in store for us. It's crazy.
I've even said, and real quick, I'll add here, it's, people like to look for the science of it.
Yeah.
Well, it is scientifically proven that humans only use a fraction of what our brain capacity actually is. No one really knows what else. So, ready? Let's go back to it again. Is it outside of the realm of possibility that these beings have more brain unlocked than we do?
It's possible.
And that's what just contains in there. Who's to say we don't have these abilities that are yet unlocked? You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
I think we do. I think I'm almost positive that we have the ability for telekinesis. I think we have the ability for mediumship and psychic viewing. And
absolutely.
I think all those things are in us. I just think that as we have disconnected from nature and the earth, that we've started to rely on technology and the comforts. These things go away because the more comfortable you get, the more complacent you become, and you're not in tune with those energies and vibrations inside you. Just like anything else, they say people can learn how to use them again, but it takes work. And unfortunately, most of us don't want to do that work. We're just used to being comfortable and having what we need. So why do we need to do that work?
And isn't that just the human state too? But if there's one lasting impact I have for everyone out there is let yourself be open. Let yourself be open, and you will feel it. You'll find it. It won't happen overnight, but when you're in the bush, when you're out just exploring, just let yourself be open. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Find that center right in your chest where it's light and it's serene and it's tranquil. You'll be surprised what'll come back in.
Yep, it's true. It's true. I mean, it's not the breathing techniques and meditations and all the stuff that the monks and all these people that they practice. It's not for nothing. It's not for nothing. There's solid evidence behind it that it works. Let's see. Let me just touch on some of these comments real quick. I've remote viewed before, and it's wild. Oh, I would love to know more. Gene Hudson, I would love for you to contact me also if you've been having a ton of stuff over the course of your life. If you'd like to talk, that'd be great. I'd love to talk to you. Don, saying goodnight to everybody. Gene, Frogman, Lynn, Chris, everyone else, stay safe. Thank you, Don. Thanks for joining us, brother. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Don. Take care.
Lynn says, I have gifts, was born with this. And I think most people who are able to use those gifts now are born with them, and they carry them through their life for whatever reason. I think children are more open to things like that too, because they have just entered into this world, and they haven't, the innocence, and they haven't been jaded yet. They haven't been swayed spiritually off of that center line as much. So anyway, Matt, that was great. You did a wonderful job, brother. You were a great guest. I'm so happy that I asked you to come on. Sometimes when you're asking people, you know, and I'm new to this, but sometimes you're asking people, you get nervous. But when we talked, I and I knew. That's what I told you earlier. I said, don't even tell me anymore. I don't want to know anymore. I want you to just go, because I knew it was going to be good, and it was very good. You did a
Thanks,
wonderful
bro.
job. You really
Appreciate
did.
it.
I'm very grateful for you coming on. You'll come back on another time.
I absolutely will. I absolutely will. I'd love to.
All right. Thank you very much, man. So everybody who joined tonight, thank you so much. I really can't tell you how much I appreciate all the love, all the support, all the comments you guys have been sending. It's so overwhelming. That anyone would ever watch me babble on about Bigfoot, like, it's nuts. So I'm so grateful. And I spoke about it in the video yesterday. I had when I made the first video, and we called it Encrypted Connections, and I put underneath it White Rabbit Productions. Well, someone asked me about, why did you name it White Rabbit Productions? And I said, well, I only put White Rabbit Productions because I thought it made it look more professional. But but there's a reason why White Rabbit. Okay, the Jefferson Airplane song and Alice in Wonderland, and the White Rabbit symbolized curiosity. So
how far down the hole are you willing to go?
Exactly, my brother. Exactly. How far down the hole are you willing to go? I say get out and chase your white rabbit, whatever it is. Chase it. Jump in the hole. Who gives a you know what? I don't want to use it because if there's kids watching, I'm Irish. Sometimes it's hard for me to not cuss. So an hour, 2 hours without a cuss word is like a.
Listen, we pow out on that early, brother. We said, all right, we can both do it.
We can do it. We can do it. So that's it, guys. It's been a wonderful show. I appreciate all of you. Me and Matt are going to get out of here. I'll upload this later for anyone who didn't get to join or didn't get to see the whole thing. It will be on YouTube tonight. I'll give it to you, Maddie, too, so you can share the link and everything. But that's it. We're out of here. You guys enjoy the rest of your night. Please be safe. Prayers to Donnie and everybody in Florida who's in the path of that hurricane. We're sending you love, light, and positive energy. We love you. I love you guys all. Have a great night, and we'll see you the next time on Encrypted Connections.
Kyle, thanks, everybody.